Alpha Maverick. I wanted to be sure, to be certain Jasmine was indeed staying with Rose. That was the only thing that made sense. Seeing her with Zeph made me think of the possibilities that, no, it can't be. She can't be staying with him. I shook it off and trailed behind them to see where they were headed. And to my relief, she was indeed staying at Rose's apartment. The sight eased the tightness in my chest, but only slightly. The drive back home felt longer than usual, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. My thoughts were a mess, swirling with frustration, confusion, and something dangerous. Control, control, control. I kept murmuring to myself over and over again to tame down my simmering anger. When Jasmine's eyes snapped to me, I almost lost it. Truthfully, I was scared. Scared of what I might do, of the emotions clawing at my chest, demanding to be acknowledged. I didn't trust myself fully, not when it came to her. I tried to convince myself that it shouldn't bother me, that I had no right to be angry. But damn it, seeing them together made my stomach twist in a way I didn't like. This is all bullshit. She's moved on, hasn't she? I let out a bitter chuckle, shaking my head. Mine. My wolf thrashed inside me, a feral growl rumbling through my chest, his possessive rage crackling like wildfire. He fought against my restraint, demanding to take control, to claim what was his. I clenched my jaw, forcing him back, shoving him into the depths of my mind with sheer willpower. The buzzing of my phone snapped me out of my thoughts. I glanced at the screen. Great, Kazim, I needed this distraction. I pressed the answer button without hesitation. Talk to me. Kazim, as usual, went straight to the point. We have a lead on Nazy. A reliable source says he might be from the Red Blood Pack. His words made me sit up straighter, with full attention. Are you sure about Zephyr's pack? I asked, even though I knew Kazim was always 97% certain before passing on information. Not completely alpha, but it lines up with some of the old records we found. This could be the break we need. I exhaled slowly, trying to process the news. It was shocking to learn that the person we had been trying to reach was from the Red Blood Pack. Who was he, and what connection did he have to the Silvercrack instrument? There is a lot of mystery surrounding the Silvercrack instrument, and the deeper we dug, the more secrets it revealed. I suspected there was something more behind the explosion. Keep digging. I don't want to move unless we're absolutely sure, I ordered. Understood. I'll update you as soon as we have something solid. I ended the call and tossed my phone onto the passenger seat, my mind already running through possible strategies. If Red Blood was involved, this was going to get ugly. I parked the car in my driveway, stepping into the silence of my house. It was too quiet, the kind of quiet that made my thoughts louder than they needed to be. I stripped off my jacket and headed straight for the bathroom, turning the shower on as hot as it could go. The steam filled the room as I stepped under the scorching water, letting it wash away the tension in my muscles. For a moment, I allowed myself to close my eyes, hoping the heat would drown out the lingering frustration still clawing at me. Then my phone rang again. I groaned, debating whether to ignore it, but something in my gut told me to check. I reached out with wet fingers, glancing at the screen. My frown deepened. She never called me like this before. The last time I saw her was the day she requested leave. A pang settled in my chest as I hoped she was okay. I answered almost immediately. Violeta? The sound that came through the phone made my blood run cold. A choked sob. A Alpha Maverick. Her voice cut through, but the pain in it was unmistakable. It hurts. I don't know what to do. I went completely still, dread settling in my bones. Are you all right? Where are you? Another shaky breath. Home. I was out of the shower in seconds, barely wrapping a towel around my waist as I grabbed my clothes. My hands were moving on instinct, throwing on a shirt and jeans as my mind raced. Violeta was a tough nut. She was always strict and uptight, both at work and out of work. She sure as hell never called me for help. If she was breaking down like this, then something was seriously wrong. I shoved my feet into my shoes, snatched my keys, and was out the door before I could even process what was happening. The drive to Violeta's place was like a blur. My heart hammered hard in my chest. Every possible worst-case scenario ran through my mind, each one worse than the last. Was she all right? Was the baby all right? By the time I pulled up to her apartment, I barely put the car in park before jumping out. I pounded on the door. "Violetta! Open up." There was no response at first, just the sound of shuffling from inside. Then the lock turned slowly, and the door cracked open. I didn't wait and pushed myself inside, my eyes scanning the apartment until I found her. She was curled up on the couch, her arms wrapped around her stomach, her face pale and drenched in sweat. I was at her side in an instant. "What the hell is going on?" She tried to speak, but another wave of pain seemed to hit her, making her wince. "I don't know," she rasped. It won't stop hurting." I crouched down, reaching out to feel her forehead. She was burning up. She shook her head weakly. "It just started out of nowhere. I thought it would go away, but it's getting worse." That was all I needed to hear. "We're going to the hospital, now." She started to protest, but I didn't give her the chance. Without another word, I scooped her into my arms and carried her toward the door. Then, just as I stepped forward, something warm and wet seeped into my trousers. I froze. My grip tightened around her as I glanced down, my breath hitching at the sight of the small pool of liquid forming beneath us. She let out a shaky breath, her eyes wide. "I think my water just broke." "Alpha Maverick, you'll be fine. You'll pull this through." I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince, Violetta or myself. I had never been around a pregnant woman before. At first, I was completely lost, unsure of what to do as Violetta clutched her stomach, her face contorted in pain. Panic gripped me for a split second before I quickly pulled out my phone and dialed Dr. James. He picked up almost immediately. "Greetings, Alpha." "It's Violetta," I said, going straight to the point, my voice tighter than I wanted it to be. "She's in pain, sweating, breathing like she just ran a damn marathon. His voice was infuriatingly relaxed. "It sounds like she's going into labor. Try to remain calm." "Labor?" My heart slammed against my ribs. "That's not possible. Her due date isn't until next week, from what I can remember in her reports. Pups don't always follow schedules. Get her to the hospital as soon as possible." She was writhing in pain in the back seat, her nails digging into the leather as another contraction ripped through her. A scream tore from her throat, raw and agonizing, and I swore under my breath, pressing harder on the gas. "Alpha," she panted. "I'm getting you there. Just hold on, okay?" Her breaths were sharp and uneven, her body trembling as she clutched her stomach. Sweat beaded on her forehead, her face pale under the glow of the streetlights flashing past. I was pushing the car faster than I should have, running every red light, swerving between cars. But I didn't care. Nothing else mattered right now, except getting her to the damn hospital. By the time I screeched to a stop in front of the emergency entrance, 2 nurses were already rushing out with a wheelchair. "We've got her!" one of them called as I threw open the car door. Violetta let out another strangled cry as they eased her into the chair, her hands clutching her belly, her body shaking. "Alpha, please, don't leave me. I'm going to die. Save me, save my child." I crouched beside her, gripping her hand. "I won't. I promise." She squeezed back, tightly and desperate. Then the nurses wheeled her inside, pushing through the double doors and disappearing down the corridor. I stood there for a second, frozen. The silence after all that screaming was almost deafening. Then I let out a shaky breath, running a hand through my hair, frustrated. She was in the right hands now. She was going to be okay. Hours passed still. I paced the waiting room, my shoes scuffing against the tiled floor. My phone buzzed a few times, but I ignored it. Every now and then, the sound of a newborn's cry echoed down the halls, and my chest tightened. Any minute now. I sank into one of the plastic chairs, rubbing my face with my hands. Throughout the wait, my mind drifted to Frank. He should have been here. He should have been the one pacing these halls, waiting to hold his child for the first time. He was supposed to be the one whispering reassurances to Violetta, telling her she was strong, that she could do this. I knew he would do anything he could to relive those moments, just one more time. Even if the universe could grant him just 10 minutes, just long enough to hold them one last time, he would take it without hesitation. Because there's nothing more precious than this. Nothing in this world could ever compare. Instead, it was me. A lump formed in my throat, but I swallowed it down. This wasn't the time for grief, but one thing was clear: I would be here. I would be someone this child could call a father figure. I promised Frank, I promised myself that I'd try, and no matter what it took, I would try and uphold my word. The door finally swung open. I shot to my feet as the doctor stepped out, lowering his mask. She's stable. The baby is healthy. Relief crashed over me like a wave, knocking the breath from my lungs. I followed him into the room, my heart pounding. Violetta was lying in the hospital bed, looking exhausted but okay, and in her arms, wrapped in a soft pink blanket, was a tiny newborn. My chest tightened. I stepped closer, my voice careful not to startle her. "Violetta?" She looked up at me, her dark eyes glassy with emotion. "She's here, Alpha." I swallowed hard, staring down at the baby. "Can I?" She nodded, and I carefully reached out, my hands feeling clumsy and too big as I cradled the newborn. She was so small, so fragile, and yet in that moment she felt like the most important thing in the world. The eyes shot open, locking onto mine. I saw them, saw him, a piece of Frank reflected in those orbs. A tug pulled deep in my chest, something unshakable. My wolf stirred, howling with an instinct I couldn't ignore. Protect. At that moment, nothing else mattered. It was as if I was reconnecting with Frank himself, as if a part of him had found its way back into the world through this tiny, fragile life. The moment was intimate, raw, and it settled deep in my bones. "Hey there, little one," I murmured, my voice thick with emotion. "I've got you." "She looks like him," Violetta murmured. I met her gaze, and for the first time in a long time, I saw something in her eyes, peace. "He would have been proud of you," I said softly. She blinked back tears, offering a weak smile. "Do you think so?" "I know so." She let out a shaky breath, watching me as I carefully handed the baby back to her. "She doesn't have a name yet." I raised a brow. "No ideas?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Francesca, after Frank." I nodded. "It's perfect." A moment of silence passed between us, then my phone buzzed. I pulled it out, frowning as I saw the message from Kazim. "Got someone who knows about Nazy. I asked him to meet us at the Groove and Booze bar for secrecy." My jaw tightened. Violetta noticed my expression shift. "What is it?" I offered her a small smile, assuring her it was nothing, just something I needed to step out for. She gave me a tired nod, her eyelids heavy with exhaustion. Not long after, the nurses walked in, administering her medication. Within moments, her breathing evened out, and she drifted into a deep sleep. I took one last glance at them before walking out the door. There was no more time to waste. If Kazim was right, this was our chance, and I wasn't going to let it slip through my fingers. "Jasmine." The sound of the front door opening snapped me out of my haze. I lifted my head just as Rose walked in, her brows pulling together the moment she saw me. "What's wrong with you?" she asked, concern clear in her voice as she stepped closer. My heart was still racing, my wolf restless and agitated, pacing inside me with unease. I hesitated, swallowing hard. My fingers curled into the fabric of my shirt, gripping tightly as if that would somehow ground me. "I saw Mav," I murmured, unsure of how to explain things to her. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself to calm down, but it was no use. My stomach twisted violently, and a sharp pain shot through my abdomen, making me gasp. I clutched my side, staggering toward the couch, my legs barely holding me up. I felt sick, not just physically, but emotionally. My thoughts were a mess, tangled and chaotic, making it impossible to think straight. Rose stilled, her eyes widening in shock. "Here? Well, did you talk to him?" I shook my head, making her groan. "Jasmine, you're so stubborn. If I were you, I'd have caved by now." "Well, you're not me," I snapped. The words came out harsher than I intended. I'd been on edge for days, my emotions all over the place, my tolerance non-existent. Rosé sat beside me, a gentle smile on her face. She took my hands. "I know you have your reasons, Jasmine. I know you're hurting, and I can't fully understand what you're going through. But just listen to him. You don't know what he wants to say." I pulled my hands away, anger simmering. That wasn't the consolation I needed. I was angry at myself, and I wanted someone to validate my feelings. "Don't give me that, Rosé. Listen to him say what?" He clearly had no intention of telling me anything. If I hadn't found out myself that his father is an incompetent leader who puts his people in danger. The thought made me sick. And you know what hurts the most? They dismissed those deaths as accidents. Do you know how that feels? When they never got the justice they deserved? I hadn't slept all night, tossing and turning, my world crumbling as I imagined my parents' souls restless, wandering for years without peace. I choked, the words caught in my throat. They never got a proper send-off, Rosé. I can't. I broke down, sobbing into my arms. Years of holding on, of trying to be strong, of grappling with the fact that my parents were gone, that I had no home to return to when things went wrong. It all came crashing down. I just wanted to be an insecure girl crying for everything she'd lost, for a stolen childhood. No one could truly understand unless they'd walked in my shoes. I was so sick of life and its unfairness. Shh, it's okay, Jasmine. Breathe in, breathe out. Rosé held me, rocking me gently, trying to calm me as I sobbed, all my defenses down. You know what? Enough! This won't do, Rose declared after hours of wallowing in misery. She jumped to her feet, heading straight to her closet. Rummaging through it, she pulled out dresses and tossed them at me. What the hell? I croaked. Don't look at me like that. I'm not going to let you mope around here. You need to relax, step away from your life for a bit, have some fun, she said dramatically, grabbing a comb. Oh gosh, this is going to be a disaster, Rosé. What are you planning? Groove and booze, she grinned. I stiffened. I knew I'd regret this in the morning, but I needed a distraction. Anything to take my mind off Maverick, even temporarily. You know what? Hell yeah, why the fuck not? I threw my hands up and stood, my eyes landing on an oxblood gown on the bed. I changed quickly. The dress hugged my waist, accentuating my hips with a high slit and a low V-neck. Rosé helped with my makeup, expertly covering the dark circles under my eyes. My dull eyes now sparkled with kohl and mascara. I definitely didn't look like I was carrying the weight of the world. Damn, girl, Rosé whistled, checking me out. I'd totally hit that. I rolled my eyes as she got dressed. The bass vibrated through the club as we walked in. Relax and enjoy, Rosé whispered. I can tell from your body language. I forced a smile. The truth was, the moment I stepped inside, I wanted to turn around and go home. Woo, come on, Rosé yelled, dragging me to the dance floor. I laughed at her enthusiasm, and before I knew it, I was moving to the music, surprisingly enjoying myself. Go best friend, fuck it up, she shouted as I giggled, the crowd cheering as I swayed my hips. I was lost in the moment. Nothing else mattered. I was here to have fun. Then my heart plummeted. I stared, wide-eyed, my ears ringing, the noise around me fading away. Stormy gray eyes met mine. His scent, stronger than ever, reached me. The man I hated to see. I felt my hands shake as the raw pain returned tenfold. The universe sure has a way of playing tricks. My wolf was over the edge, clawing hard at me, trying to find a way and run into his arms. She snarled and growled, urging me to let her out, but I bit it down, forcing her to the back of my head. His eyes darkened, like a raging storm. I stepped off the dance floor, my breath coming in ragged gasps as he called after me. Jasmine! Jasmine! I ignored him, focusing on getting away. Was he stalking me, or was this just some messed up coincidence? I wanted to believe it was something else, anything else. But how could it be? Of all places, of all times, not just once but twice in a day, most importantly, how did I end up seeing him here? My mind raced, searching for some logical explanation, but none of it made sense. Is he here on purpose? Why was he making things so damn difficult for me? Rosé pulled me towards the car. Jasmine, calm down, she said. As soon as I was inside, I saw him running towards us. Alpha Maverick. I pulled into the parking lot of Groove and Booze. The neon sign flickered above the entrance, casting a dull glow over the row of bikes and cars lined up outside. Even from here, I could hear the pounding bass from inside, the muffled roar of voices blending with the music. Honestly, I hated this place. It was loud and messy, packed with drunk idiots looking for a fight and hormone-driven teenagers pretending they belonged. Crowds weren't my thing. The chaos, the suffocating energy, it all grated on my nerves. I made my way straight to the VIP lounge, a dark, secluded area where Kazim and the supposed witness were already waiting. As I entered, they both stood. I gave Kazim a nod before turning to the man in front of me. He looked frail, gray-haired, sunken eyes, thin fingers twitching anxiously. You already know why you're here, I said, wasting no time. Yes, he stammered, fidgeting with his hands. He was terrified. Good, because I wasn't in the mood for a dog and mouse hunt. Sit, I motioned, and he obeyed like a lost puppy, swallowing hard. I could hear the erratic pounding of his heart from here. Let's not waste time, I continued, sliding a stack of contract papers in front of him. His eyes widened. Tell me exactly what happened that day. His fingers trembled as he picked up the contract. It was supposed to be confidential, he whispered. I could practically see the gears in his head turning. But believe me, Alpha, I had no part in this. I was just there when it happened. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. I never said you had a hand in it. I'm asking you to comply, the easy way. I leaned forward, letting a dark, sarcastic smile tug at my lips. Or the hard way. His whole body shuddered. I know you were one of my father's trusted men. You knew about this. Tell me everything. Kazim had sent me the details earlier after digging into the man. Apparently, he was just a janitor, one of the many faceless workers who went unnoticed in the grand scheme of things. But what made him different was that he had been one of the few people my father had allowed into his library. That alone was enough to raise questions. My father had never been the type to trust easily, let alone give anyone access to his private space. If this man had been around, if he had seen things, then he might know something about Nazy, about the past, about the secrets buried beneath the surface. He shook his head, his lips trembling. Sir, I was there during the negotiations, he stammered. Everyone knew the device was dangerous. The contract stipulated a huge compensation for any damage. He took a deep breath. I warned the former Alpha. I knew Nazy was cunning, that he was rumored to have killed the former Beta of the Red Blood Pack. But the former Alpha didn't listen. His eyes glazed over as if reliving the moment. He went ahead, knowing how effective the Silvercrack instrument was. It solved 88.9% of our lab problems. A chill ran down my spine. And to confirm my suspicions, he whispered, Nazy was in the lab that very day. I knew he was behind the fire outbreak, but no one believed me. His voice cracked. Nazy, he's a monster dressed in the finest suit, wearing the brightest smile, hiding just how deranged and selfish he truly is. A deep growl rumbled in my chest. My fists clenched. This bastard, for his selfish interests? My blood boiled. The sheer wickedness of it. My wolf, which had been silent all night, suddenly stirred, pacing excitedly at the back of my head. I clenched my fists, suppressing my rage. How dare he? The extent of his greed was incomprehensible. The pieces were falling into place. The fire was suspicious. It was an injustice to the lives lost, to the people who suffered because of it, because of my father's carelessness. Even though his intentions were good, he was betrayed. After hearing what I needed, I dismissed the witness, sitting back to process the conflicting emotions. As I was leaving the bar, Jasmine's scent hit me. My wolf, silent until now, perked up. I'm going insane, I thought. First imagining her, now smelling her, or it had to do with earlier and my mind was playing games on me. Damn it. I turned, but my feet were rooted to the spot. I couldn't stop myself. Instead, they carried me backward against my will. Then I saw her, there, on the podium, dancing, my Jasmine, looking sexy as hell. A deep growl of possession rumbled in my throat as I fought to keep my beast contained. My eyes scanned the men around her, lingering on her, watching her. She belonged to me, mind, body, soul, every single inch of her. Then her gaze snapped to mine. My breath hitched, the world around me stopped. Was she real? I was afraid to blink, afraid that if I did, she would disappear, and I would realize I had only imagined her, that she was never really there. Her shocked expression turned to anger. She stepped off the stage, her friend following. Jasmine, I called, following her. She ignored me, jumping into a car. They sped off. Damn it, I cursed, returning to my car, torn between chasing her and giving her space. Leaning back against my seat, I closed my eyes. My mind reeled, drowning in conflict, reconsidering everything. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Kazim. I read it, and my teeth clenched in fury. Forwarded, from the almighty Nazy to Alpha Maverick. I received your message, and I see that you are intrigued by me. But I warn you, be careful what you wish for, boy. Sarcasm dripped from every word. Almighty? I scoffed. Who the hell did he think he was? Rumors said he had an empire, controlling rogues. If that was true, then I couldn't even begin to fathom how deep his corruption ran. But the number was unknown, untraceable, typical, a challenge wrapped in arrogance. He wanted me to know he was watching, that he was in control. But he shouldn't underestimate me. I smirked, slipping my phone into my pocket. Let the hunt begin. Jasmine! Come on, let's go, Rose, now! I barked, gritting my teeth, my hands shaking more than I wanted to admit. Why was I reacting this way? Rose didn't argue. She sped off, gripping the wheel tightly as if she, too, could sense the storm brewing inside me. I held my stomach, my body breaking into a cold sweat, nausea rising in thick waves. The second we pulled up to the house, I flung the door open and bolted for the bathroom. I barely made it before I emptied my stomach, retching violently as my body betrayed me. The bitterness clung to my tongue, making me gag again. I hated how I felt. My body felt clammy as I stripped off every shred of clothing on me. I collapsed onto the cold tiled floor, my breath ragged and my limbs trembling. My body felt like it wasn't mine anymore, as if something foreign was invading me from the inside out. Rose stood at the doorway, staring at me, her face pale, her hands gripping the door frame. I could see the fright in her eyes, probably wondering what must have triggered this reaction. "Jasmine, what's wrong? Are you sure we're not going to the hospital?" I groaned, curling into myself. "I just feel so sick, so terrible. What is wrong with me? Every part of my body hurts, heck, even my nipples." My voice cracked, frustration burning in my throat. I didn't need this. Not now. Not ever. Even though my wolf was at the edge, she was weak, unable to lend me her strength during this vulnerable moment. It was as if it affected her more than me, and that terrified me the most. Rose took a slow step forward, her lips parting slightly as if realization had just dawned on her. "Jasmine," she said carefully, her voice hesitant. "Did you ever sleep with Alpha Mav without protection?" The question hit me like a slap on the face. I froze. My heart stilled before it began pounding painfully against my ribs. My fingers clenched into the fabric of my shirt, my entire body stiffening. We had, several times. A sickening dread crawled up my spine, turning my blood ice cold. No, this couldn't be happening. Not to me. "No, this can't be," I whispered, frantically shaking my head in denial. My breaths came out shallow, my chest constricting as my mind spiraled into chaos. Rose didn't wait for me to collect myself. She spun on her heel, yanking open the cabinet above the sink and pulling out a small rectangular box. A pregnancy test strip. "Wait here," she said, her voice laced with urgency as she shoved the test into my trembling hands. I stared at it like it was a ticking bomb. My fingers felt numb as I opened the box, my mind screaming at me to stop. But I had to know. Minutes passed like hours. When I walked out of the bathroom, Rose was pacing. She stopped abruptly, her wide eyes locking onto mine. "What does it say?" I couldn't speak. I could barely breathe. I lifted the test, staring at the two pink lines glaring back at me like they were mocking me. Pregnant. My body felt detached from reality, as if I were floating in a bubble, watching myself from a distance. My heart didn't race anymore. Instead, it felt like it had gone completely still. "I'm numb," I whispered, my voice void of emotion. Rose gasped, clapping a hand over her mouth. "Oh my gosh, you're pregnant?" The words rang in my ears, making me feel even sicker. Pregnant? With his child? The child of the family who stole my life, who shattered me into pieces I could never put back together. Rose took a cautious step toward me. "Jasmine, what now? When will you tell Mav?" I shook my head slowly at first, then faster, my hands balling into fists. The thought of it made my stomach churn with rage and disgust. My face hardened, my heart turning into stone. "Never." Rose's eyes widened. "Jasmine, never will I keep a child for his bloodline. Do you know the atrocity his father committed?" "I'm going to abort it," I said, my voice flat, final. She took a sharp breath, staring at me as if I had just shattered into a million pieces right in front of her. "Jasmine," she whispered, stepping closer. "Are you sure? You need to get yourself together." I scoffed, letting out a hollow laugh. "You expect me to carry his child? To give life to something that shares his blood? The same blood that ruined mine?" My voice cracked, but I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing my face to remain expressionless. Tears filled Rose's eyes. "Jasmine, listen to me." "No." I shook my head violently. "Not in this lifetime." I turned away from her, pressing my hands to my stomach. It still felt flat, like nothing had changed, but everything had changed. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Of course, the universe wasn't done with me yet, as if taking away my freedom, my dignity, my very identity hadn't been enough. Now, it wanted me to carry a piece of him inside me. No, I wouldn't. I had already lost too much. I wouldn't let this thing steal anything more from me. This thing inside me, it was his. It was a reminder of everything I lost, of everything I would never have again. Jasmine, please, Rosé's voice cracked as she reached for me, but I pulled away. You don't have to make a decision right now. Just breathe, okay? Seeing I wasn't going to budge easily, Rosé had stopped trying to persuade me. She only stared at me, eyes heavy with sorrow, lips pressed into a thin, worried line. But she knew. This was my decision, and I had made it. So why did my chest feel so tight? Why did my fingers tremble as they hovered over my stomach? I clenched my fists. No more thinking, no more second-guessing. Tomorrow it would be over. A tear dripped onto my hand. I sucked in a shaky breath, my vision blurring as another tear followed. There's no going back now. Jasmine! Gosh, my head hurts. I groaned, rubbing hard against my temples. I barely got a wink of sleep. The night had been endless, my mind spinning like a broken record, replaying everything over and over. No matter how many times I closed my eyes, sleep wouldn't come. My body was exhausted, but my thoughts wouldn't quit roaming. Every time I started drifting off, doubt crept in like a shadow, whispering what-ifs in my ear. By morning, I felt like I had been in a fight with myself. My heart ached, my limbs were sluggish, and my emotions were stretched thin. But one thing remained clear. I had made up my mind, and no one, not even Rose, was going to stop me. I sat up, rubbing my face. The apartment was quiet, except for the occasional clinking of dishes from the kitchen. I knew who it was before I even stepped out of the bed. With a sigh, I threw on a hoodie and padded toward the kitchen. Rose stood by the stove, making coffee, her messy hair pulled back lazily in a bun, her face drawn with worry. I needed not to be told that I wasn't the only one who had been up all night. She turned when she heard me, a hopeful light flashing in her tired eyes. "Good morning, Jas. Hope you slept well," she said carefully, turning her full attention to me. But there was something in her tone that held a double meaning to her words. I didn't utter a word. Instead, I nodded in acknowledgement and walked straight to the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water, and took a long drink, pretending she wasn't standing there. But Rose was persistent. "You didn't sleep much," she continued, pouring herself a cup of coffee. "I could hear you tossing and turning all night." I placed the bottle on the counter with more force than necessary. "Didn't she get the message? I'm not dealing with any of this. I'm fine." "You look awful," she said. "Gee, thanks," I muttered, rubbing my temples. She set down her cup of coffee. "Jasmine, we need to talk." I sighed. "No, we don't." "Yes, we do," she insisted, stepping closer. "I know you're tired, I know you're overwhelmed, but please, just listen to me." I clenched my jaw, already knowing where this was going. "Rose, don't do this," she pleaded. "You don't have to." I let out a humorless laugh. "You act like I have a choice." "You do," she shot back, frustration leaking into her voice. "You're just scared. And I get it, Jas, I do. But making a decision out of fear—" "I'm not scared," I snapped. She gave me a look. "Then why haven't you gone through with it yet?" My hands curled into fists. "Because I needed time to think." "And what if you need more time?" she pressed. "What if you're rushing into this and end up regretting it?" I exhaled sharply, turning away from her. "I don't need this right now." I turned to leave, but her voice stopped me. "This damn stubborn woman. I know it is your decision, but you know you can't do this." I spun back around, glaring at her, and before I could get all defensive, Rose stepped closer, her eyes filled with frustration. "You can't go through with whatever is going on in your head, Jas. You know you don't have to." I scoffed, feeling the irritation bubbling up in me. "Oh, so now you're deciding what's best for me?" She let out a frustrated breath. "You know damn right that's not what I mean. I'm not deciding anything. I just don't want you to make a mistake you'll regret for the rest of your life." I folded my arms. "And you think keeping this baby won't be a mistake?" "Maybe it won't be," she shot back. "Maybe this is happening for a reason. Maybe." "No," I cut her off, my voice sharp. "You don't get to tell me what to do with my life, Rose. You don't get to guilt-trip me into keeping a child I never wanted." Rose's face hardened. "It's not just about you anymore." My temper flared. "Oh, so now I'm selfish?" She didn't back down. "You're scared, and I get it, but you're making this decision out of fear, and that's not fair to—" I slammed my hand against the counter. "Enough!" The room went silent. Rose stared at me, breathing heavily, and I could see the hurt in her eyes. But I didn't care. I was done having this argument. I didn't want to listen to her, to hear those words which I knew were bitter truths. I don't want to confront any of it. I took a deep breath, my hands shaking as I grabbed my phone from the counter. I'm not changing my mind, so just drop it. She clenched her jaw but didn't say another word. Alpha Zeph's name flashed across my screen just as I collapsed onto the couch. I hesitated for only a second before answering. "Morning, Princess Jasmine," he teased. I rolled my eyes, trying to bite down a smile. "What do you want?" "Straight to the point, huh?" He chuckled. "Well, I was thinking you need a break." I frowned. "A break?" "Yeah, you've been stressed, I can tell. So let me take you out," he said. "A change of scenery might help." I opened my mouth to protest, but for some reason, I stopped myself. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe it was the suffocating feeling of being stuck in this apartment with Rose's constant judgment. Either way, I found myself considering it. It was as if the universe was by my side, sending some hidden messages to me because why now of all times? Alpha Zeph's call coming through? Fresh air wouldn't be the worst thing. "You don't have to make that sound so convincing," Zeph teased. "It's just a few hours. No pressure." I sighed. "Fine." "Good," he said, sounding pleased. "I'll pick you up by 2. Before I could overthink it, I hung up and stood, heading to my room to freshen up. Hours later of bed rotting, I dressed and walked out of the room to see Rose still sitting in the living room. She watched me like a hawk, but didn't utter any words to me. Exactly what I needed. Silence. With that, I walked out. Alpha Zeph was leaning against his black SUV when I stepped outside. He looked annoyingly good in a fitted black t-shirt and jeans, his dark hair slightly tousled. "You're actually on time," I said as I approached. "I'm full of surprises." He opened the passenger door for me. I slid in without another word, and we took off down the road. The silence between us was oddly comfortable, and for the first time in what felt like days, I let myself breathe. After a while, I turned to him. "Where are we going?" "You'll see," he said with a smirk. I huffed but didn't press. We drove for a while, leaving the noise of the city behind. Eventually, Zeph pulled up to a quiet spot by the lake, the water shimmering under the sunlight. It was peaceful and calm in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. I stepped out, stretching my arms as a breeze brushed against my skin. "Okay, I'll admit, this isn't terrible." Alpha Zeph chuckled. "I'd hope not." I walked toward the water, inhaling deeply. The air was fresh, crisp. For a moment, I almost forgot the weight on my shoulders. Almost. You don't have to go through with it, you know. I stiffened. When will I ever catch a break? I was getting tired. Slowly, I turned to face him. "Not you too." Alpha Zeph shoved his hands in his pockets. "I'm not saying anything you haven't already thought about." I shook my head. "You don't get it." "Then make me understand," he said. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I can't do this." "You think you can't," he corrected. "There's a difference." Frustration bubbled inside me. "Why does everyone think they know what's best for me?" "Because sometimes we see things you don't," he said simply. I turned away, staring at the water. "It's my choice." "I know." He was quiet for a moment. "I just don't want you to make it alone." Something in his voice made my chest tighten. I let out a shaky breath. "I don't know what to do, Zeph." "For now," he stepped beside me. "Just breathe." So I did, and for the first time in days I didn't feel completely lost. "Jasmine." I inhaled a deep breath, now feeling like I could finally blurt out what had been pressing heavily on me. I stared at the water colliding before me, the waves crashing violently against the shore, mirroring the chaos inside me. "I'm pregnant." Silence. Alpha Zeph stood there, his entire body tensing as though the words had physically struck him. His eyes darkened, and his jaw clenched so tightly I thought it might shatter. For the first time since I had known him, he looked speechless. I braced herself for whatever was coming next, anger, disappointment. But all he did was stare at me. And then finally he spoke. "What do you want?" His voice was steady and unreadable. I swallowed hard, my fingers curling into my palms. I decided to lower my guards down to let someone in. Honestly, I don't know. Alpha Zeph's expression didn't change. I took another breath, forcing myself to continue. I was thinking, I want to go to the hospital, to get rid of it. A comfortable silence stretched between us before he shook his head. Then he exhaled. Is that what you really want? After a while, I persuaded him to take me to the hospital. Although I could see from his body language that he wasn't happy with my decision, he didn't show it. Instead, he silently supported me. You're sure? I inhaled sharply, wetting my lips. Yes, please don't try to talk me out of it. I've already made up my mind. He didn't speak for a long moment, just stared straight ahead. I swallowed hard as we walked back to the car and pulled onto the road. My heart felt like it was lodged in my throat, pounding furiously against my ribs. I wanted to keep this under wraps. As the Luna of Gold Pack, going to the city hospital would be a reckless move, one that would undoubtedly raise alarms. The last thing I needed was whispers and speculation spreading through the pack. Alpha Zeph seemed to understand without me having to say much. Instead of taking me to the city, he assured me he knew a place on the outskirts, far from prying eyes, somewhere discreet where I wouldn't be easily recognized. Still, I knew I had to be careful. My face wasn't just known in the pack, it was known beyond. I was the one behind the lichen virus antidote, and that alone had made me a figure of both admiration and controversy. If the wrong people saw me, if word got out about where I was and why, things could spiral fast. Okay, you know there's no going back. Are you really sure about this, Jasmine? Alpha Zephyr's voice cut through the silence as soon as we arrived. There was no judgment in his tone, only something that unsettled me. I didn't turn around. If I looked at him now, I would break. I do. No, Jasmine, he said, stepping in front of me, blocking my path. You don't. I clenched my fists at my sides. You think you know me so well? I know enough. His gaze searched mine, his hands flexing at his sides like he was holding himself back. And I know you don't want this. I swallowed hard. You don't know what I want, Alpha Zeph. His lips pressed into a thin line. Then quietly, he said, Then look me in the eye and tell me you want this. My throat tightened. Tell him, Jasmine. Just say it. But the words refused to come. His shoulders slumped as he shook his head in disapproval. You can't, can you? I sucked in a shaky breath, my body trembling. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. His voice was softer now, but still persuasive. My hands curled into fists. Then why does it feel like I'm drowning? His expression darkened, his jaw tightening. Because you're carrying too much. I turned away, staring at the hospital doors. I had fought so hard to convince myself this was the right path, the only path. But standing here, on the edge of it, all I felt was doubt. Alpha Zephyr didn't stop me as I walked into the hospital, but I felt his presence lingering. The waiting room was cold. I sat there, staring at the tiled floor, my knee bouncing uncontrollably. A nurse called my name, and I forced myself to stand. My legs felt heavy, my heart pounding so hard I could barely hear her as she guided me through the hallway. The walls were too white. The air smelled like antiseptic and something final. A doctor walked in, flipping through my file. She gave me a small, practiced smile. We'll start with an ultrasound, she said. Standard procedure. I nodded numbly. The cold gel hit my skin and I flinched. Then the screen flickered to life. A sound filled the room, a tiny rhythmic beat. My chest tightened. The heartbeat was steady, strong. Is this a sign from the moon goddess? My baby, my pup, the heir of the gold pack, Maverick's legacy. I had spent so much time trying to push away the thought that this was real, that this was someone. But hearing that sound, steady and insistent, shattered every wall I had built around myself. The moment I saw it, my wolf jolted, instincts kicking in. A powerful urge to protect surged through me, overwhelming everything else. She growled inside me, restless and fierce. Protect. The word echoed in my mind, stronger than my doubt, stronger than my fear. Tears burned my eyes. The doctor glanced at me. Would you like to proceed? I couldn't speak. I stared at the screen, at the faint outline of something so small, so fragile. My baby. I had spent so much time convincing myself that this was the only way forward, but now, I guess I was wrong. I sat up so fast that the doctor blinked in surprise. I need a minute. She nodded. Take your time. I didn't. I grabbed my bag and rushed out of the room. I barely heard the nurses calling after me. My breath came in quick, shallow gasps as I pushed through the hospital doors, my feet moving on instinct. Zephyr was waiting outside. The moment he saw me, he straightened, his sharp gaze locking onto mine. Jasmine? I let out a choked sob. I couldn't do it. He didn't look surprised. I pressed my hands to my face, trying to breathe. My whole body trembled. Moon goddess Alpha Zeph, I couldn't do it. He exhaled, stepping closer. Come here. I didn't hesitate. I crashed into his chest, gripping his shirt like it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me securely. I've got you, he murmured, over and over again, reassuring me. I shook against him, the weight of everything threatening to crush me. I thought I could do it. I thought it was the right thing. He didn't say I told you so. He just held me. Minutes passed before I finally pulled away, sniffling. Alpha Zeph studied my face, then asked, "What do you want, Jasmine?" I wiped my eyes, my voice hoarse. "I want to start over." His gaze softened. "Then do it." I let out a shaky breath. "I can't." "Why?" My hands trembled. Because I still love him." Zephyr went still. I nodded. Zephyr exhaled slowly, dragging a hand through his hair. "Jasmine, I know," I whispered, wrapping my arms around myself. "I can't do this. I can't keep denying and lying to myself. I fucking love him. I can't do this to us." Alpha Zeph was silent for a long moment. Then he asked, "Have you forgiven yourself?" I blinked at him. "What?" "For everything." His voice was gentle now, lacking the usual sharpness. For loving him, for being angry at him, for being scared, for all of it. I sucked in a breath, because the truth was, I hadn't. I had spent so much time punishing myself, convincing myself the bond has failed. Alpha Zeph studied me, then sighed. "The first step to moving on isn't forgetting, it's forgiving." I swallowed. "I don't know if I can." "Then let's start small," he said. "Forgive yourself for today." My breath hitched. I didn't say anything, but I was damn certain I wanted to try. "Maverick! Find her! Get back!" my wolf snarled, and I heard it, a faint heartbeat. I couldn't understand why my wolf was acting this way. "Mate." I clenched my jaw, forcing my hands to steady on the steering wheels, and suppressed the desire to turn right back and run into Jas's arms. But the feeling only grew stronger, a pull so intense it was damn near unbearable. Jasmine had run from me again, and this time I felt the loss like a wound, a sharp tear straight through my chest. Why? Why the hell did she always do this? I slammed my foot on the brakes and pulled over, my tires screeching against the asphalt. Frustration burned through me, hot and suffocating. I slammed my fist against the steering wheel once, twice, until my knuckles ached. This is driving me insane. My breath came out in sharp, uneven bursts. This wasn't normal. The bond, the pull, I had felt it before, but never like this. Never so raw and this unrelenting. It felt like a beat, alive. I shoved a hand through my hair, trying to push past the pounding in my skull. I needed to focus, needed to think. Jasmine wasn't the only problem on my hands. I pulled out my phone and dialed Kazim. He picked up on the second ring. "Alpha Mav," he greeted, his voice cool. "No shit." I exhaled heavily, pressing my fingers against my temple. "I need you to keep a close eye on the janitor. Make him believe he is off the hook, but watch him closely. We can never be too sure." Kazim was silent for a moment. Then, "You think he knows something else?" "I don't think. I know." My grip tightened around the phone. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and now he's a witness to something bigger. If Nazy finds out we extracted some information, he's as good as dead. Keep him safe. But more importantly, I want you to dig deeper into Nazy, find anything that could lead to him. Kazim clicked his tongue. "You're right, Alpha. I will make sure I do that. But I just don't get this Nazy guy. Why is he hiding in the shadows? It is clear that words got to him, meaning he is watching us closely. Why won't he strike? There's something off about him." I shut my eyes for a brief second, trying to piece everything together. And I need to know everything. His connections, his real reason for being here, and what the hell he truly has to do with the explosion and the Silvercrack instrument. "Got it," Kazim said after a beat. "And what about Alpha Zephyr? Did you reach out to him?" I hesitated, the name forcing a bitter taste at the tip of my tongue. I had never wanted to reach out to that bastard for anything, because I'm not so sure I could restrain myself from snapping his head in half for touching what was mine. But this wasn't just about me anymore. It was bigger than that. "I'm considering sending a proposal over," I admitted, "to inquire about who the hell is Nazy and why such a dangerous person is from the Red Blood Pack." Kazim let out a low whistle. "Didn't think I'd ever hear you say that. Yeah, well, I sighed, gripping the wheel. Times are changing. Another heartbeat. That damn heartbeat pulsed in my chest again, throwing my focus off balance. My wolf was clawing at me, urging me to move, to find her. I shook my head. Not now. I'll be in touch, I told Kazim before hanging up. I needed to get home and clear my head. There was something seriously wrong with me, but I hated every bit of it. I ran a hand over my jaw, the rough stubble prickling against my palm. Dark circles framed my eyes, and for the first time in a while, I really looked at myself. I looked like hell. With a sigh, I grabbed my razor. By the time I was done, I felt a little more like myself. The sun was already setting, so I threw on a jacket and stepped out for a walk. I needed the fresh air to clear my head. And sulking at home is doing more harm than good to my immune system. I wasn't expecting to see Rosé. I glanced around, hoping to see Jas, but found no one. She glanced up, her eyes widening slightly before she gave a small smile. "Greetings, Alpha Maverick," she said. "Hey." A brief silence stretched between us before I asked. I couldn't hold it back any longer. "How's Jas?" "She's doing just fine." Something flickered in her expression, like she wanted to say more but held back. "What?" I pressed. She hesitated, then shook her head. "Nothing, just, I heard Violetta's baby arrived." I exhaled. "Yeah, she did." She nodded, looking away. Whatever she wasn't saying lingered between us, unspoken. I wanted to poke more, to ask more questions. I wanted to ask if Jas was hurting like I was if she missed me, but the words never came. Instead, I gave a curt nod, the earlier zeal fading as I turned on my heels and headed home. As soon as I arrived home, something felt off. My frown deepened as I sensed another presence. What did she want? I exhaled sharply, already exhausted. I wasn't in the mood for visitors, let alone unexpected ones. My jaw tightened as I scanned the room, my instincts on high alert, and I had a feeling I wasn't going to like whatever she had to say. Isabella stood by the front door, arms crossed, her sharp eyes drilling into me like daggers. The tension in her posture was unmistakable. I barely had time to process her presence before she stormed toward me, fury radiating off her like a wildfire. She shoved a stack of papers onto the coffee table, her voice sharp as a blade. "What is the meaning of this, Maverick?" "What do you want, Isabella?" I snapped, barely sparing her a glance as I walked my way slowly toward her. My patience was razor thin, my mind still tangled in the mess I had left behind. Isabella stood in the middle of my living room, her arms crossed over her chest, her expression unreadable. But I knew better. Whenever she had that look, it meant there was trouble. She stepped forward and placed a stack of documents on the table in front of me. "Really, Mav?" Frowning, my gaze followed her actions. As if reading my expression, she spoke. "A query report," she said coldly. "The elders are complaining." I exhaled sharply, rubbing my temples. "Of course they are." Her eyes narrowed at me. "This isn't something you can brush off easily, Mav. The pack is in chaos. They're looking for leadership and not silence. My pack was falling apart. Businesses that once thrived under my leadership were crumbling. Allies were slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. The board had been patient, too patient, but even that was running out. And here I was, standing in my own damn living room, fighting off a headache while Isabella spat words that I hate to say were right. I clenched my jaw. "And what do you want me to do? Make a damn speech. Tell them what they want to hear." "Do your job," she shot back. "You've been distracted, absent, and everyone is noticing. The businesses are collapsing, and the collaborators are redrawing. The board needs your attention." I picked up the report and flipped through it without really reading. The same old complaints. Unrest, doubts, fear creeping into the ranks. I tossed the papers back on the table. "I'll handle it. You said that last time. What is going on with you lately? Ever since that day at the office, it has been as if you are an entirely different person. Talk to me." I turned away, pacing toward the fireplace. The flames flickered, casting shadows across the walls. I could feel Isabella's eyes burning into my back. I was supposed to care, but truthfully, I couldn't. "The pack is unstable, and you're standing here acting like you don't care?" I let out a bitter chuckle. "You think I don't care? Everything you do says you don't." She took a step closer, her voice lowering, sharpening. "Ever since that day at the office, you've been a ghost. You're barely keeping things together, Mav. You disappear for hours, you don't show up to meetings, and don't even get me started on the deals that are slipping through our hands because you're too distracted to negotiate. Silence stretched between us before she finally spoke again, this time with venom dripping from her voice. It's because of her, isn't it? I froze, my fingers curling into fists. I am trying my very best to avoid anything that will force those bitter memories back, and it seems like Isabella was hell-bent on stepping on my toes. Jasmine, Isabella continued, stepping closer. She's the reason you've been like this, huh? I knew that something was wrong. I should have ignored it, walked away. But the moment she said Jasmine's name, the restraint snapped. Drop it. She's ruining everything, Isabella pressed. She's bringing bad luck into our lives, Mav. The pack is falling apart because of her. I turned so fast she took a step back. My eyes locked onto hers, and I could feel the anger rolling off me in waves. That same Jasmine, I said, my voice dangerously low, is the one who worked her ass off for this pack. The same person who found the cure for the lichen virus. The same person who saved your damn son from perishing for his reckless behaviors. Because if it were up to me, I swear by the moon crest, he would have been buried 6 feet by now for challenging me. Isabella's mouth opened, but I didn't let her speak. And now, because things aren't going the way you want to blame her? You think she's the reason for your problems? I let out a bitter laugh. It's not her fault Logan wasn't man enough to handle his own responsibilities. Why do you hate her so much? Her face twisted in anger. How dare you? No, I cut her off. How dare you? You're not upset because Jasmine is some bad omen. You're upset because she's better than you expected her to be. Because she's stronger than you can handle. Because you know, deep down, that she could have led this pack better than your damn son ever could. Her breathing came out rasped, as if she was about to pass out any moment from now. You're out of line, Isabella seethed. I wiped my mouth, my eyes never leaving hers. And you're out of your mind if you think I'm going to stand here and listen to you drag her name through the dirt. She inhaled sharply, her body trembling with rage. This isn't over, Mav. I smirked. No, it's not. But you should really learn when to walk away. She stormed out without another word, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. I let out a long breath, running a hand through my hair. Damn it, this was the last thing I needed. By the time I got to my room, I was exhausted, agitated, my head pounded with the weight of everything. I collapsed onto the bed, rubbing my face. I needed sleep, even just a few hours. Closing my eyes, I let the darkness take over, but then a sound so soft and fragile, like a baby's cry. My brows furrowed. The sound was faint, like it was coming from a distance. Then it grew louder, a baby, crying. It echoed in my head, wrapping around me like an invisible force. My chest tightened. The sound was so familiar, like I knew it, like it was mine. My eyes snapped open, my heart pounding. What the hell was that? I sat up, rubbing my temples. It had to be exhaustion messing with me. Stress. Maybe it was because of Violetta's birth, my mind playing tricks on me. Yeah, that had to be it. Shaking my head, I lay back down, forcing my thoughts to quiet. But even as I drifted off, the sound lingered. A heartbeat, a cry, and an ache deep in my chest that I couldn't explain. Jasmine. Stop beating yourself over it, Jasmine. You are great. The ride back home was quiet, the hum of the engine the only sound filling the tense space between us. Alpha Zephyr didn't say much, nor did I. I was too lost in my own thoughts, still shaken by the realization of what I had almost done. It felt like I had just escaped a nightmare. The moment we arrived at Rose's apartment, I climbed out of the car and rushed inside, barely waiting for Alpha Zephyr to leave. My heart was hammering against my ribs, emotions piling up like an avalanche, threatening to consume me. Rose was already waiting in the living room, standing near the couch with worry etched into her features. The second she saw me, her expression softened, and without hesitation, I threw myself into her arms. I couldn't do it, I whispered, gripping her tightly. I couldn't go through with it. The idea of erasing this life inside me had nearly shattered me. Rose held me just as tightly, her hand rubbing soothing circles on my back. "Oh, Jasmine," she murmured, "I'm so proud of you." Tears welled up in my eyes. "I feel horrible for even considering it," I admitted. "I don't know what's wrong with me. I was so scared. I thought it would be the only way to fix everything. but now I can't even imagine not having this baby. It's okay, Jasmine. Take it easy on yourself. At times, we say stuff we don't mean, Rose said, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. Rose pulled back slightly, holding my face in her hands. Nothing is wrong with you, she said firmly. You've been through so much, Jasmine. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. What matters is that you made the choice your heart wanted. I sniffled, nodding. I swear, I said, voice thick with determination. I swear I'll protect this baby with everything I have. Rose smiled through her own tears, pressing her forehead against mine. And I'll be right here with you, always. A warm feeling spread through my chest at her words. I wasn't alone. I had Rose, I had this baby, and suddenly I knew I had to tell Greg. I pulled away and wiped my face before grabbing my phone. My fingers trembled as I dialed Greg's number, the anticipation making my stomach twist. It rang only twice before he picked up. Jasmine, you okay? His voice was laced with concern. I took a deep breath. I have news, I said. Big news. There was a pause, then. What is it? I swallowed, glancing at Rose, who gave me an encouraging nod. I'm pregnant, Greg. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. Wait, what? I'm pregnant, I repeated, my heart pounding, and I'm keeping the baby. A beat of silence passed, then Greg let out a breathy laugh. Holy crap, Jasmine, you're really having a baby? I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Yeah. A genuine warmth entered his tone. I'm going to be an uncle. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in days. Yeah, you are. Wow. That's amazing, Jas. I mean, it's crazy, but amazing. I'm so happy for you. He then went on and on, raving about how he couldn't wait for the pup's first shift, talking about proud uncle moments. Calm the hell down, Greg. There's still more time. His excitement was infectious, and for the first time since everything happened, I allowed myself to feel it too. We talked for a while longer before hanging up, and I let out a breath, looking at Rose. He's happy, I told her, a small smile tugging at my lips. Of course he is, Rose said, and you should be too. I nodded, but even as relief filled me, something else settled deep inside my chest, a yearning I couldn't ignore. I wanted Maverick. The thought came out of nowhere, hitting me like a tidal wave. I wanted him here. I wanted his presence, his warmth. I wanted to tell him everything, to have him see me, to have him hold me. I pressed a hand to my stomach, swallowing hard. I had no idea how he'd react, or if even I was ever ready to let him know about this child. I need him now more than ever now. You have to tell him, Jasmine. As if reading my thoughts, Rose's voice cut through the silence while she sat across from me, her hands clasped together. I knew she had been waiting for the right moment to bring it up, and now, after my conversation with Greg, she saw her opening. I stiffened, looking away. No, I don't. Yes, you do, she insisted, leaning forward. Maverick deserves to know. My chest tightened. He doesn't need to be involved. Rose exhaled, shaking her head. That's not fair, Jas. You know it's not. He's the father of this child, and no matter what's happened between you two, you can't just shut him out. Looked away, my heart pounding. He deserves to know, she continued. He deserves a chance to be a father. A lump formed in my throat, but I refused to let it show. Rose was right. I knew I was being selfish. I knew just how much Maverick had craved a pup, someone to carry on his legacy, someone to protect and love. And I knew without a doubt that he would love this child unconditionally. My heart twisted painfully at the memory of one of the worst times of my life. David's deception, the lies, the setup. They had paid to be told I was pregnant, manipulating the situation for their own twisted gain. But Maverick, he hadn't cared. He had been willing to father a child he wasn't even sure was his, because the idea of having a pup meant everything to him. And now I was carrying his child. So was keeping him in the dark the right choice? Would this truly be justice? Would this be enough atonement for his father's sins? Alpha Maverick. The morning light streamed through the curtains, causing me to squint my eyes. Sleep had been restless, riddled with fragmented thoughts that refused to settle. All night I had been haunted by the wails of a child and the eyes of Jasmine. The cries were different. This one was raw, desperate. Then suddenly, everything went dead silent. The shift from chaos to nothingness had jolted me awake more than once, leaving me with a strange, unsettled feeling in my chest. Damn it. Before I could reach for my phone, it buzzed on the nightstand. Kazim, I grabbed it and answered. "What is it?" "You need to see this," Kazim said, his voice unusually serious. "I just sent it to your email." I frowned. "What am I looking at?" Kazim sighed. "A contract and receipts tied to your father, specifically debts paid off to Nazi." I didn't waste another second. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up the email. A file was attached, marked urgent. I clicked it open. The first page was a document outlining a contract. It stated that in case of any damage to the instrument, a large sum would be paid as compensation to the dealer in the red blood pack. My brows furrowed. "The hell is this?" "Keep reading," Kazim urged. I scrolled further. Below the contract were receipts. My father's name stood out immediately. He had paid off multiple debts, not just to the red blood pack, but to Nazi. The amounts were staggering. 75,000 in silver coins, 2 crates of medicinal herbs, 100 grams of pure gold, sheep's fur. I exhaled sharply, my fingers drumming against the laptop. "What else do you have?" Kazim hesitated for a moment before speaking. "We've been searching for Nazi, trying to track him down, but so far there's no solid lead." I clenched my jaw. "Nothing?" "There are rumors," Kazim admitted. "Word is, he fled after everything went south. Some say he's leading an army of rogues in a remote area, but we haven't been able to confirm it yet." I frowned. That bastard wasn't the type to lay low without a plan. If he had rogues under him, he wasn't just hiding, he was preparing for something. "We'll keep digging," Kazim assured me. "We'll find him." I let out a slow breath, my mind racing. "Do that, and Kazim?" "Yes, Alpha? Don't stop until you do." The line went dead. I shut my laptop, leaning back in my chair, my thoughts a storm of questions and unfinished business. After hours of working on re-strategizing my business collaborations, as many had been withdrawing, my phone pinged. Everything had been slipping from my grasp ever since Jasmine walked out, and I couldn't afford to put my pack in jeopardy. I picked up my phone to see a text from Kazim. "Hospital called. Violetta's stable. She and the baby are being discharged today." I ran a hand down my face. At least that's one less problem to worry about. After a quick shower, I grabbed my jacket and headed out. The hospital wasn't far, and when I arrived, I found Violetta sitting up in bed, cradling the newborn in her arms. Her expression was soft, almost peaceful, completely different from the exhausted, terrified woman I had seen before. She looked up when I walked in, a faint smile touching her lips. "You came." I said I would. A nurse entered just then, checking Violetta's vitals before nodding. "She's good to go. Both mother and baby are in perfect health." Violetta sighed in relief, her fingers gently brushing over the infant's tiny hand. "I still can't believe she's here," she murmured. I wasn't sure how to respond to that, so I stayed quiet. Once the discharge papers were signed, I helped gather her things before escorting her to the car. She moved slowly, still recovering, but she refused any extra assistance. Classic Violetta. The baby stirred in her arms as she settled into the back seat, her tiny face scrunching up before relaxing again. The drive was quiet, except for the occasional soft hums Violetta made to soothe the baby. By the time we reached her home, she was visibly exhausted. I stepped out first, opening the door for her. "You're sure about staying here?" I asked as she adjusted the baby in her arms. She gave a tired smile. "It's home. I need to be here." I nodded, but wasn't convinced. Just to be safe, I pulled out my phone and called Kazim. "Get someone to watch over Violetta," I said the moment he picked up, "and assign a maid to help her with the baby." "You got it," Kazim responded without question. I ended the call, glancing at Violetta. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. "I know." I carried her bags inside, setting them down by the couch before turning back to her. "You should rest," I said. Violetta shook her head, her gaze dropping to the baby in her arms. "I'm fine." She wasn't. The exhaustion clung to her like a second skin, but I didn't push. Instead, I moved toward the kitchen. "Sit down. I'll make you something." She blinked, surprised. "You cook?" I shot her a look. "Don't start." She chuckled softly, sinking into the couch with the baby. By the time I returned with a bowl of soup, she looked more relaxed, her fingers tracing idle circles over the blanket wrapped around her daughter. "Here." I handed her the bowl. "Eat." She took it, murmuring a quiet thank you before bringing the spoon to her lips. I leaned against the armrest, watching the baby, Francesca, her tiny hands curled into fists, her soft breaths barely audible. She looks just like Frank. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Violetta stilled, then let out a quiet breath. I know. Silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken grief. I miss him, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, my throat tight. Me too. I reached out, placing a comforting hand over hers. She looked up, her eyes glistening. He would have been so happy, she murmured, to see her. I didn't doubt that. Frank had been the kind of man who'd light up at the smallest joys. He would have spoiled this kid rotten. Violetta inhaled shakily and gave a small smile. Thank you, Mav, for being here. I squeezed her hand once before pulling away. Always. She shifted slightly, her free hand brushing against mine. The touch lingered, longer than I expected, longer than I wanted. I didn't know if my mind was playing tricks on me, but it was suggestive. I shook my head, trying to discard those absurd doubts forming in my mind. This wasn't the time, and I wasn't the man for that. She must have noticed my lack of response because she pulled away, looking away and blinking rapidly. Jasmine, a very sharp, insistent beeping, yanked me out of sleep. Groaning, I rolled over, pulling the covers over my head. The last thing I wanted was to face the day or even open my eyes. I just wanted to pause the entire world momentarily. But before I could sink back into the comfort of sleep, the bedroom door burst open. Jess, get up! Rose's voice rang through the room, accompanied by the relentless shaking of my shoulder. 5 more minutes, I muttered, burying my face into my pillow. You don't have 5 minutes, she huffed. Check your phone. My phone? I forced my eyes open and reached for it blindly. The moment my vision cleared, my stomach dropped. A message from the council. Board meeting today. All alphas and high-ranking members required. I sat up so fast my head spun. Shit. Yeah, shit, Rose said, crossing her arms. They've been trying to get hold of you, but you've been away. Alpha Zeph called, which explains why I know. She gasped, her eyes widening. Don't tell me you're going to be in the same room as Alpha Maverick. Mav, my throat tightened. I wasn't ready for this. In fact, I don't think I would ever be. And now with the pregnancy, how am I supposed to face him? I haven't decided if I should let him know about it or not. I can't go, I blurted out, swinging my legs off the bed. I'll say I'm sick or something. Rose sighed, sitting beside me. Jas, you can't hide forever. You're still Luna of the Gold Pack until the separation is finalized. You have a responsibility. I knew she was right, but that didn't make it any easier. Just as I was about to argue, my phone rang. Alpha Zephyr. I hesitated before answering. Hello? Morning, Jasmine. His deep voice was smooth. I heard about the meeting. Would you mind if we attend together? I blinked in surprise. Together? It might help, he said. You need to be there. And if you're worried about Mav, let him stare. You're still his Luna, for now. Let's remind them who you are. My lips parted, but no words came out. He was right, but the thought of stepping into that room, of facing Mav and the others, made my chest tighten with a crippling anxiety. Jasmine, Zephyr's voice softened this time. You've never been one to back down, if anything. Your fierceness and determination is what makes you stand out. This shouldn't be the first. Don't let your insecurities change who you are. I exhaled slowly, then nodded to myself. I needed to hear that. I almost allowed myself drown, almost questioned my self-worth. This isn't who I am. I know who I am. I believe in me, and no one is ever going to change that, not even my feelings for Maverick. I should use this opportunity to prove to myself that I would overcome this heartbreak. Fine, I'll be ready soon. Good, I'll pick you up in an hour. The call ended, and I sat there for a moment, processing. Rose nudged me with a grin. See, even Alpha Zephyr believes in you. Now get dressed and show them you're still the Luna they should respect. I nodded, trying to mask my nervousness. But what am I supposed to wear? I need to dress to impress. I said, turning my full attention back to Rose. You have nothing to worry about, Rose reassured me, her tone firm and confident. But I did worry. I needed to show Mav exactly what he was missing. To walk into that boardroom with my head held high, exuding confidence, power, and elegance. No more being overlooked or underestimated. Without wasting another second, we rushed into the bedroom after I freshened up, where Rose flung open the wardrobe and started sifting through my options. Her sharp eyes scanned each piece of clothing with a critical gaze. Then, with a triumphant smirk, She pulled out a sleek black pencil dress that hugged the body in all the right places. The deep V neckline added just the right amount of allure without being inappropriate, and the long sleeves kept it professional. "This," she declared, holding it up against me. "Sexy, yet formal, exactly what you need." I ran my fingers over the smooth fabric, envisioning myself striding into the boardroom with unwavering confidence. "Now sit," Rose commanded, pushing me onto the vanity chair. She worked quickly, expertly styling my hair into soft, cascading waves that framed my face. My makeup was bold but refined. Dark red lips for a touch of power, a subtle smoky eye to add depth, and perfectly sculpted brows to tie it all together. With each brushstroke, I felt the transformation taking place, my nerves giving way to a growing sense of certainty. By the time she was finished, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me in the mirror, and that was exactly the point. "I love it," I screeched, pulling Rosé into a tight hug. As soon as I came down the stairs, Alpha Zephyr's eyes flicked up, scanning me from head to toe. His gaze held a rare flicker of approval, though he quickly masked it with his usual cool demeanor. "You look stunning," he said, his tone casual but laced with something unreadable. A warm flush crept up my cheeks, but I rolled my eyes, refusing to give him the satisfaction. "Careful, Alpha Zeph. If I didn't know any better, I'd think you were complimenting me." He smirked, crossing his arms. "Don't get used to it." I shot him a playful grin. "Oh, trust me, I won't." His sigh was exaggerated, but I didn't miss the small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. The drive to the meeting was tense, but Alpha Zeph did his best to keep the mood light. "You know, if you're really nervous, I could always stage a dramatic scene," he said, smirking. I raised a brow. "Like what?" "Storm in, slam my fists on the table, growl at Mav for hurting you." He grinned. "Real over-the-top alpha behavior." I rolled my eyes, but the corner of my lips lifted. "You're ridiculous." "That's what makes me charming." His joke did little to calm the tight knot in my stomach, but I appreciated the effort. When we arrived, I took a deep breath before stepping out of the car. My heart pounded as we entered the meeting hall, but I kept my head high. Confidence. Even if I was shaking inside, no one needed to know. The moment I stepped in, I felt it. Mav's gaze. "Jasmine." Across the room, Mav was staring at me, his dark eyes burning into mine. The air seemed to shift between us, thick with unspoken words, memories neither of us dared to acknowledge. He looked tired, more than tired. Shadows clung beneath his eyes, and a rugged edge now sharpened his normally composed features. There was something different in the way he held himself, the usual weight of leadership on his shoulders now suffocating, pressing him down. And yet, even as exhaustion dulled his expression, his intensity remained, his entire focus locked on me. A strange feeling curled in my stomach. I forced myself to look away, but it was harder than I expected. My wolf stirred, reacting to his presence as if drawn to him despite everything. I hated that instinct, hated how even after everything, my body still recognized him. Beside me, Zephyr leaned in and muttered under his breath, "Is it just me, or does he look like he hasn't slept since you left?" I bit my lip, refusing to acknowledge the small, traitorous flicker of satisfaction that rose in my chest. Mav hadn't moved. He hadn't blinked. He was just staring. A heaviness settled over me, conflicting emotions battling in my mind. Should I say something? Ask if he was okay? No, this wasn't the time, and he wasn't my concern anymore. I inhaled, gathering myself, and turned to Zephyr with a forced chuckle. "Let's just get this over with." The meeting began soon after. The greatest Delta stood and cleared his throat, his deep voice slicing through the room's thick tension. "There have been growing concerns within the pack," he started. "We've noticed a rise in rogue attacks as well as internal instability. Many of these issues seem to be directed at Alpha Mav's leadership." A murmur spread through the room. Several heads turned toward Mav, waiting for his response. But he didn't say a word. He remained stoic, and his expression was unreadable. I frowned. Rogue attacks? Internal instability? Why hadn't I heard about this before? As the discussion continued, voices rising in urgency, I absorbed everything, trying to piece it all together. Mav wasn't saying anything, wasn't defending himself, wasn't addressing the concerns being thrown at him. That wasn't like him. A small worry crept into my chest. He was always in control, always calculating. so why did it seem like he was barely present? Before I could dwell on it further, a sharp, familiar voice cut through the noise, snapping my attention back to the moment. "Oh, please," Isabella sneered. "We all know whose fault this really is." My jaw clenched before I even turned to look at her. She sat near Mav, her posture dripping with arrogance, her lips curled into a smirk. "Jasmine," she drawled, her voice sickly sweet. "I mean, it's no surprise. Ever since she stepped up, everything fell apart. She was never a true Luna to begin with." A few murmurs of agreement spread through the room. My wolf bristled, anger bubbling in my chest. "Watch your mouth, Isabella," Alpha Zephyr interjected, quick to defend me. It was clear he couldn't afford to shut up even when he knew fully that this was not his pack matters. "Oh, I'm just saying what everyone else is thinking," she shot back. She was incompetent from the start, a weak Luna. No wonder Mav is struggling now. He had to carry dead weight. That did it. I slammed my hands on the table, standing up so fast my chair nearly toppled over. "Say that again," I dared, my voice raising slightly, but yet I kept my composure intact. We went back and forth, exchanging a few words. Isabella's smirk widened, but before she could speak, Mav finally moved. "Enough." His voice wasn't loud, but it carried through the room with authority, making everyone fall silent. He looked at Isabella with a disappointed gaze. "You will not disrespect Jasmine like that." Surprise flashed across her face, probably not thinking he would publicly speak against her before she masked it with a scoff. "I was just stating facts." Mav's jaw tightened, but he didn't reply. Instead, his eyes met mine for the briefest moment, something flashing behind them. I clenched my fists. I wasn't sure if his defense was out of guilt or something else, but I didn't need it. Taking a deep breath, I forced my voice to stay steady. "I may not be Luna much longer," I said, looking straight at Isabella, "but don't mistake my silence for weakness. Say another word, and we'll see who's truly incompetent." A beat of silence followed. Then, Isabella scoffed, flipping her hair dismissively. The discussion moved on, but the tension lingered. Mav's eyes stayed on me, watching, observing, and as much as I wanted to ignore it, I felt it. The weight of everything unspoken between us. "Maverick." The car door slammed shut with more force than necessary as I gripped the steering wheel, cursing under my breath. Damn it. The morning had already started terribly, and it was only getting worse. Kazim had woken me up at the crack of dawn with a call about the board meeting. I had barely processed his words before Isabella cornered me in the hallway, nagging about it too. I should change the keys. She couldn't keep barging into my house without my consent and walking as if she owned the place. "You knew about this, didn't you? You knew Jasmine would leave you just like she had left Logan after sucking his resources dry," she had accused, arms crossed and her tone sharp. I had barely spared her a glance as I buttoned my shirt, because the moment I give her even an ounce of attention, I would lose it completely. "I have more important things to deal with, Isabella." She scoffed. "Oh, like what? Avoiding your responsibilities? Do you even care that the pack is in shambles?" I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to snap. Instead, I grabbed my jacket and walked past her, ignoring whatever else she had to say. "See you there." "So you're not even going to wait for me?" She screamed out as I ignored her, driving away. Now, sitting in my car outside the meeting hall, I exhaled sharply, trying to rein in my frustration. I didn't have the patience for unnecessary politics today, but as soon as I stepped inside and took my seat, my mood took a sharp turn, for the worse. The murmurs started immediately. I thought she was with Alpha Maverick? Didn't he propose? What's this? Is she now with the Alpha of the Red Blood Pack? My entire body tensed. I didn't need to look up to know she was here. I felt her. Then I smelled her. Jasmine. But this time her scent was different, stronger, richer. It wrapped around me like a vice, intoxicating, overwhelming. My alpha senses sharpened instantly, every nerve in my body locking onto her like she was the only thing in the room that mattered. Then it hit me. Beneath the floral warmth of her usual scent was something deeper and familiar. My scent clung to her. Not in a way that suggested we had merely crossed paths recently. No, this was embedded into her very being, as if it had rooted itself beneath her skin, becoming a part of her. My pulse pounded, a sharp mix of confusion and something more dangerous curling in my chest. That wasn't possible. I hadn't touched her in weeks, so why did she still smell like me? The doors swung open fully, and then she stepped inside. My breath stalled. She looked ethereal. The soft glow of her skin, the gentle flush on her cheeks. She was radiant in a way that made my gut twist. She moved like she owned the ground beneath her feet, the subtle sway of her hips a silent challenge, as if daring me to acknowledge her. And damn it, I did. Every curve was accentuated, the dress hugging her figure just right. It wasn't overly revealing, but it didn't have to be. She didn't need to try. She was effortlessly stunning, and she knew it. But my eyes weren't the only ones on her. Across the room, whispers stirred. The energy shifted. I wasn't the only one who noticed the way she glowed, the way her presence demanded attention without a single word. I clenched my fists beneath the table, trying to force myself to focus. But then, Zephyr. He was beside her. His hand rested lightly on her waist, his lips far too close to her ear as he murmured something that made her laugh. A real bright laugh, the kind I hadn't heard in too long. Jealousy burned through me like wildfire. My wolf growled inside me. Rip him apart. I clenched my fists under the table, forcing my breathing to stay even. I refused to let jealousy get the best of me. But damn it, I hated the way she looked at him. Like his presence alone was enough to brighten her mood. Like I had never been the one to make her smile like that. Like I didn't exist at all. I forced my gaze away and focused on the meeting, because I knew the moment I spend another second watching her, I wouldn't be able to control myself. The greatest Delta stood, his deep voice cutting through the murmurs. We've been noticing an increase in rogue attacks. The instability is growing within the pack. A few heads turned toward me, their expressions expectant. I met their gazes head-on, refusing to flinch. We are handling the situation. The warriors are actively patrolling the borders. Another elder spoke up. Then why are the attacks increasing? I gritted my teeth. We're looking into that. Then Isabella spoke. Oh, please, she scoffed, flipping her hair dramatically. It's obvious why the pack is in chaos. The real problem is right in front of us. I knew where this was going even before she turned her sharp glare to Jasmine. This all started when she stepped down as Luna. She was never fit for the role. Weak, incompetent. Say that again. Jasmine's voice rang clear, sharp like a blade slicing through the tension. I looked up in time to see her standing, her blue eyes locked onto Isabella, unyielding. Isabella smirked. Oh, did I strike a nerve? Jasmine took a step forward, her posture composed, but her eyes burning with fury. You've always been a snake, Isabella, but let me make one thing clear. You do not get to define my worth. Isabella scoffed. Please, you abandoned the pack, and now look at you, parading around with Zephyr like some love-struck fool. Maybe if you spent less time... Enough. The room fell silent as I stood. I turned to Isabella, my voice cold. You will not disrespect Jasmine like that. She blinked, clearly not expecting me to defend her. I was just stating facts, she muttered, rolling her eyes. Jasmine didn't even spare me a glance. Instead, she stepped forward, refusing to back down. I may not be Luna much longer, but don't mistake my silence for weakness. Say another word, Isabella, and we'll see who's truly incompetent. Then Isabella scoffed, looking away, but she didn't dare push further. A part of me swelled with pride. Jasmine had always been strong, but now she was different. She carried herself with a new kind of confidence, a presence that demanded respect. And that scent, there was something off, a hint of something else, someone else. The meeting eventually wrapped up, but before I could reach Jasmine, she was already heading for the exit. She didn't even glance my way, didn't hesitate, didn't wait. She was gone. My jaw clenched. I wanted to go after her, but before I could move, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Violeta. I sighed and answered. Yeah? Mav? Her voice sounded breathy, weak. I don't feel so good. I frowned, standing up. What's wrong? She paused, groaning as if in pain. I don't know. I'll be there in a jiffy, I assured her, already approaching my car. The drive felt longer than it should have, my mind running through 1,000 possibilities. Was she feeling sick? Has something happened? By the time I reached her house, my pulse was hammering. I stepped inside without hesitation, my senses on high alert, only to freeze as I heard light, carefree laughter coming from the other side of the house. My brows furrowed. That didn't sound like someone who had called in distress. Frowning, I moved toward the sound, pushing the door open. Violetta was sitting there, phone in hand, but the moment she saw me, her expression shifted. She abruptly ended the call, stuffing her phone aside. Then she winced, sucking in a breath as if suddenly in pain. Something about the way she did it felt off. My frown deepened. Weird. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice cautious now. She nodded quickly, but there was something in her eyes. Something not quite right. Maverick. Violetta winced, her fingers pressing lightly against her temple. I shrugged off the suspicion that almost took the course. "Damn it," she muttered under her breath. I frowned. "What's wrong?" "My head. It hurts," she admitted, closing her eyes for a brief second before shaking her head like she was trying to clear the pain away. I went through her hospital bag and checked for some pain relief medicine. She let out a small sigh, taking it from my hand and popping it into her mouth. "That actually helps." I hummed. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. The quiet was nice, not the usual tense silence I was used to. "How's Francesca?" I asked after a while, shifting gears. Violetta leaned back against the couch, her eyes fluttering open. "Asleep. She's been crying all day and is exhausted. Jane, the stay-in nurse, is watching over her." I nodded but didn't say anything else. Just stared ahead, lost in thought. "You seem off," she finally said, cutting the silence. I glanced at her briefly, then looked away. "Just a long day." Her dark eyes studied me, filled with something I couldn't quite place. "This is more than just a long day, Alpha. You've been like this since you walked in." I exhaled sharply, leaning back against the couch. "It's nothing, Violetta." She crossed her arms. "I don't buy that." I shot her a look, but she only smirked undeterred. It must have been obvious because after a beat, Violetta spoke again. "Are you okay?" I hesitated. The automatic response was to say I'm fine, push it away like I always did. But she was watching me, waiting, her expression open. "Yeah," I muttered, but even I didn't sound convincing. Violetta sighed, shifting slightly to face me. "You don't have to pretend with me, you know." I raised an eyebrow. "Don't I?" She shook her head. "Not today. Today I can be the friend you need." I scoffed, leaning forward with my elbows on my knees. "You? My friend?" "Yes, Mav, your friend. Not Frank's ex, not your worker. Just someone who's here, and if you need to talk, you should, even if it's just for today." I looked at her then, really looked at her. Her gaze was steady, sincere. No judgment, no expectations, just patience. And for the first time in a long while, I considered actually taking that offer. "Come on," she coaxed. "Talk to me. I know it has something to do with her." I stiffened. "Who?" Violetta rolled her eyes. "Don't play oblivious, Alpha. Jasmine." At the sound of her name, something tightened in my chest. I remained silent, trying to mask whatever flicker of emotion threatened to rise, but Violetta was sharp. She always had been. "I knew it," she said triumphantly, leaning forward. "You saw her at the meeting, didn't you?" I clenched my jaw. Violetta smirked. "And she wasn't alone. That did it." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Yeah, she was with Zephyr." But then, I found it strange. Frowning, I turned to her. "How do you know about my meeting and that she was there, also not alone?" She whistled, shrugging it off. "Damn, that's gotta sting. I have my resources, you know. Just because I'm on a leave doesn't mean I'm not updated on whatever goes on in the pack." I glared at her, and she held up her hands in mock surrender. "Relax, I'm just stating facts." I hesitated, but seeing no real harm in telling her, I let out a slow breath. "It's just weird, seeing her like that. So different. She looked happy?" Violetta supplied. I scowled. "I don't know. But I did. She did look happy, and it pissed me off." Violetta leaned back, crossing her legs. "You're still stuck on her, aren't you?" I tensed, my gaze snapping to hers. "Why shouldn't I be? I know she's upset and will come around, but I'm getting tired of waiting. I wanted to give her some space. I want to go after her. I just can't stand the thought of her moving on," she finished, tilting her head. "Alpha, be honest with yourself. You deserve better. You always have." There was something in her tone that made me look at her again. She reached forward, placing a hand on mine. "Jasmine never appreciated you. She was selfish, always prioritizing herself over the pack. She left, didn't she? Just abandoned everything. And now she's with Zephyr of the Red Blood Pack?" Violetta scoffed. "She's nothing but a—" "Stop." The word came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. How dare she speak about not just the Luna, but my mate, my wife like that? I won't tolerate that from anyone. Violetta blinked, taken aback. What? I clenched my jaw, my grip tightening on my knee. Don't talk about her like that. She exhaled in frustration. Alpha, I'm trying to help you. I shook my head. No, you're trying to make yourself feel better by tearing her down. Violetta's lips pressed into a thin line. You're still defending her. I didn't respond. Instead, my mind drifted, back to Jasmine. To the long nights she spent working at Grand Prime, exhausted but determined. The way she fought to keep up despite the pressure, despite the expectations. How much she had struggled to prove herself, and how much everyone had failed to see it. Then, before I could process it, Violetta leaned in, closing the space between us. Her intention was clear. I recoiled instantly, disgust twisting in my stomach. What the hell are you doing? Violetta froze, her expression crumbling. Alpha, No. I shook my head, stepping back as if I needed more distance. I didn't want to listen to her or what she had to say. Nothing could ever justify her actions. I can't believe this. I have never seen you as anything more than a sister. How could you? Her face fell, but I wasn't about to console her. Not for this. Disappointment weighed heavy in my chest as I turned and stormed out, leaving her in stunned silence.